Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talk Tuesday with me, Susan Wilkinson Cox. Today we will be talking with author Luke Phillips, so I'll tell you a little bit more about it. But I wanted to say, for those that come on board, if you've got any questions, then please put them in the comments, and obviously we'll endeavour to answer those. Or if you want to know more about Luke, his details will be also posted in the comments, and we'll mention it a few times. If you're watching on replay, then please put hashtag replay. Always give us some feedback, whether it's live or whether it is, afterwards. But thank you for coming on board and joining us on Talk Tuesday. Another riveting evening and another twist to our guests. But what I wanted to say before I come is welcome, and also I wanted to just let you know what was happening with us going forward. But most importantly, I wanted to talk just for a second about the lockdown. We're obviously into another lockdown, and I wanted to just remind you of a few strategies for coping with lockdown, or a few things that you could do. So just going to list a few of those, and I'll try and put them up on the website later or tomorrow. Is one, limit the news that you watch, because you're just reinforcing all the negativity and the fear that's instilled in us. Take time for yourself to enjoy the activities that you do. Stay connected with family through Facebook, play games on the internet with your family, whatever goes on, but just stay connected with people. Make a note or identify your coping strategies. So what works for you? What keeps you focused? What keeps you in a good place? And remember to kind of repeat those every day. And a positive habit. So whatever your good 5 positive habits are, make sure that you're doing them. If that's meditation and that works for you, that's meditation, it works for you. Help other people. So if you're a person that really has to be out, then reach out to the community, the churches, the food banks, and see if you can sort of maybe deliver things to different people. And stay active. Make sure you go for your walks, you do your exercise in your house, in your back garden. Keep some positive endorphins going through your body. And most importantly, ask for help. Whether it's your doctor, a friend, a family member, whoever it happens to be, ask for help. You are not on your own. Okay, hi guys, thank you for coming on board, whoever's there. Can't see the comments yet, I'm a bit slow with that, but thank you for coming on board and listening to me again and our guest. The other thing I wanted to remind you what was coming up, as most of you know, but let me remind you, tomorrow morning we have got meditation at 6:30. So why should we meditate? Why should we meditate first thing in the morning or any time? I do the 6:30 meditation so that it will set the tone for your day, rather than just rushing into your day and getting carried away with your day and not even paying attention to anything. This gives you time to be still, to be focused, to be balanced and settled, and it will help you focus on the rest of your day and also offer contentment and clarity. So come and join me if you can tomorrow. It will be live at Minding the Soul at 6:30. And then finally, I missed it this week, but what we will have is what I'm going to call the word. So this will be a question that will be given to you every week, once a week, that will be thought-provoking and allow you some inner reflection, which will then in turn help you grow and see things in the reality and help your mental and physical state. So watch out for that. I'll tell you a little bit more as we go on. And then starting the 18th of this month, so 2 weeks time, we are starting really a new meditation over Zoom. So if you want to get involved in meditation, see what it's all about, see if you want to make it part of your life, then drop me an email or contact me, message me, and we'll get you involved in that. And of course, any questions, then let me know. But most importantly, let me tell you about our guests. I'm really, really, really excited to invite Luke, who I've known for quite a while. Not only is an author, he proofreads and many other things, got many, many talents. But I can't remember everything off the top of my head, so I'm going to read from my piece of paper a little bit about him so you get some clarity and understanding, and then we'll bring him in and introduce him to you. So Luke Phillips has always been interested in natural history. He says it's hard to say when the interest began to include the myths and monsters that haunt the four laws, but it may well have been as a young age as he stood on the banks of the Loch Ness. Despite studying zoology at university, Luke has strayed from the mainstream into the eerie world of cryptids. I know I've said that wrong, but he'll tell me off in a minute. And monsters. And the truth may well be stranger and far scarier than the fiction, he says. His first book, Shadow Beast, was launched in 2015, and his second, The Daughters of Darkness, was released in 2017. His two up-and-coming novels, Phantom Beast and Rogue, will be debuted in 2020, so later this year. So watch out for that. Luke is a British author, and he is based in Kent. His books, or the book I've read, definitely was based in England, and I loved it all the more. But anyway, without further ado, let's bring Luke in, and please welcome in and ask your questions. Welcome, Luke.
Hi, everyone.
Lovely to see you.
You too.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and tell us all about you today, and books and writing a book. And I know, obviously, I've read one of your books, which I enjoyed tremendously and did get involved in it, but I'll tell you a little bit more about my experience with it. But what I wanted to really start off with is, tell us how you got involved in writing. Was it always in you, or did it just start, and a little bit where it came from?
I think it really started first off in school. I was, even at primary school, I was writing, from an early age on. I was writing very, very imaginative stories. I was making things up, on a regular basis. I was telling people, these huge, mysteries and marvels of, I told people I had, a supercar underneath a hill in my garden, and I had an imaginary dinosaur and all sorts of things, and obviously, I began to notice that not everybody else was doing the same thing. It was kind of just me. And in later life, I basically started writing them down. In school, I was always encouraged to do writing. So, when I got to secondary school, particularly in the second year, I had a really great English teacher called Mr. Foyle, and he really wanted me to be a writer. But at the time, I was absolutely dead set on being either a vet or, as I did, go on to study zoology at university. So, I was mad keen on animal science and biology, and that was where I wanted to go. But it was only in every job I've ever done and every school I've ever been to, sooner or later I've navigated back around to writing. It's either in the work I do in marketing, or it's what I've been doing in my part time in writing the books. So it always comes around at some point.
So, do you believe that everybody's got a book in them?
I think, it's a bit like the character in Ratatouille from the Disney film. Anybody can cook. So, and to a certain extent, we're all unique, amazing, individuals. So surely we've all got a story to tell. Whether everybody has the equipment or the tools to tell a story is another, or the time to tell a story is another. But yes, I absolutely think, people do have a book in them, because everybody's got their own story. And you've got to remember as well, we come from, our species is a storytelling species. It always makes me laugh when traditional authors get upset about audiobooks, for instance, because we are an audible species. We've been telling stories and handing them down literally from the ages. We're tuned to tell stories and listen to stories, because it's how our history, our oral histories have been passed down. So I think, we're all, to a certain extent, telling stories and listening to stories is literally in our DNA.
Absolutely. And tell us, when did you first start to write your first book? Was that a big feat, or did it, tell us a little bit how that came about, and, where did it come from? How did you begin?
For me, it was, Shadow Beast really started life in 2008. I had this idea. But the main reason I started writing, and a lot of people start writing, is because I couldn't find the books I wanted to read.
Wow.
I wanted to read, a very specific genre of, creature feature horror, featuring these animals that people keep saying they've seen, animals that I've actually investigated and things like that. But nobody was writing fiction about them. There was all these, really impressive non-fiction books about them, and lots of reported sightings and all of that. But there was nothing to take it a little bit further into the realm of things going, well, very, very wrong, basically. That's it. We like the blood and guts of it all, and there's not enough of that in the real world. So I had to invent something.
But having said that, I read, or shall I say, listen, because I know that you do the books and you do the audio, but obviously I'm usually in the car, so 4 hours going up to my dad's and 4 hours back, and I couldn't put Shadow Beast down. And it is not my type of book at all, but I got absolutely, for everybody out there, I got absolutely enthralled in it. And Thomas and Catherine, the main characters within the book, I could relate to everything. The fact that it was English, the fact that I could identify the areas, and obviously your detail now about the animals, and they're in closures and whatever now makes sense, because obviously I didn't realize that you'd done all that study on the animals. But absolutely, I was completely from a person that wouldn't think twice about picking up that book. I would highly recommend it. And I told you, I was in the car, I was pressing play. I was at my dad's, so I'm going to bed early, and I was pressing play, got up in the morning and pressing play till the thing finished, and then I had to read it again. So absolutely amazing. But when you say horror, it's not horror as in gory horror, is it? It's very well written and dictated and received. The language is amazing. I did learn a few new words.
Well, that's really kind of you, and I won't disagree. That's exceptionally high praise, but I definitely won't disagree with you. That's I mean, for me, one of the really important factors, and one of the things that a lot of my readers have said that makes the books unique, is that I include the animal's point of view. Yeah. So, Shadow Beast starts off from the creature's point of view. And I think it's, one of the things I really, really wanted to get across was the fact that animals are, the science backs this up now, that we know that particularly, certain species like big cats, bears, wolves, all of that, they have these, they are basically sentient beings which are capable of thinking, feeling emotions. Some of them have really complex emotional processing centers. So the whole idea that that these animals can feel and respond to things, particularly big cats, one, it's not unreal. It's based on real science, and secondly, it's not something you see too much. You don't see animals represented as an actual character that often. So
yeah, and I just thought it was amazing that they did have this character, and they were speaking, so to speak, and they were so real. And I actually really became engrossed, and I was always wondering what this great big cat that everybody was trying to kind of find was going to look like and do next. I mean, it was enthralling. But yeah, so I think you got it, from my opinion, and I'm not an expert by any imagination, but I think you got it from every point of view. And I won't give the ending away, but I love the ending.
Oh, thanks.
I love the ending. I wanted more, though. I wanted more. But anyway, maybe there's going to be a sequel to them.
Well, there is. Yeah, I mean, Phantom Beast is a very much a direct sequel, so that'll be out later this year.
Oh, is it?
The Daughters of the Darkness has got the same characters in it, but I needed to put a bit of time in between book 1 and book 3, because, as you know, as you say, the ending requires, how can I put it, a little growing up from certain individuals. So.
Yes, definitely. Say no more. Hold on. Sure. All right, okay, that's just a question. Just Diana saying thank you. This is not just interesting but inspiring, and thank you for sharing the details. Thanks, Diane.
Yeah, thanks, Diane.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well that's interesting is, everybody's got a book in them potentially, but I mean, where do you begin? You sit down, and how long does it take you, or what are the varieties of time? What dictates the time?
I think there are a number of things that people can give themselves real anxiety about, And when you're starting out, one of the things that a lot of people think about is they've got to be in the right environment. They've got to wait for inspiration. They've got to be in this creative sort of Valhalla in order to write. And the thing is, all of those things are luxuries which you may or may not get. And writing is a muscle. It's a creative practice. It's a spiritual practice that takes discipline. You mentioned in your intro, meditation. There is a discipline involved in getting up in time to do my meditation and to do it every morning and so forth. And the same is true of writing. You have to be disciplined. You have to basically sit down and do the work. It's one of my favorite quotes, but Stephen King said, he wrote a brilliant book called On Writing, and it's just, his thoughts on, the craft. And he said, he basically says, amateurs wait around for inspiration. The rest of us just get down and do the work, and that's the thing. You basically just have to start writing. It doesn't matter if what you write is rubbish and you have to edit it and do it again. You have to start writing. It's a muscle. It needs, toning and building. So
I've got a question here for you. So you talk about Stephen King, who I know is a famous author, but I don't think I've read any of his books. But it says, I've got one here. It says, what literary pilgrimages have you been on, and did they inspire you?
Yeah, so I mean, the probably the most recent and most meaningful one for me was in 2016, and I went to Paris, and I was on the heels of my literary hero Ernest Hemingway, and James Joyce, and Gertrude Stein, basically the lost generation. And I stayed in Montmartre, which was very well known as the artist's quarter. I ate in the cafes and restaurants that they did, or the ones that were still standing. And I went there. I went to Shakespeare and Co., which is this really famous bookstore in Paris. It's in all the films. It's right basically opposite Notre Dame. Went there, listened to a reading. There was a guy who just launched a book on Jack the Ripper. So you go into this tiny medieval townhouse, which is split over multiple levels. And you can listen to, it's like going back in time. It's fantastic. So I did that. Montmartre is an amazing area of the city. It's one of the oldest parts of Paris. And from, again, going back to the zoology point of view, it's really famous from my point of view because it's where in the late 1600s, the wolves of Paris, which were this huge pack of wolves, which were led by a leader known as Bobtail to the locals, basically put Paris under siege, and that's where they lived. They lived on Montmartre, which was the hill where the Martins lived. And that's where they entered the city. So it's got a double whammy for me. So
that's Scooby coming in there. What? So okay, so they're all popping in there and saying hello and doing their bits and pieces. So tell me then, what are the common traits for aspiring writers, or traps? Sorry, what are the common traps for aspiring writers?
Well, like I said, the big one is putting too much pressure on themselves and thinking they've got to write, a novel in a month, or they've got to do a 9-to-5 job writing. When it comes to creative work, you could probably only work, you're probably only capable of 2 or 3 hours of creative work a day. That's so you need to build your writing schedule around that. I, for instance, normally write in the afternoons, because that's when I'm more relaxed. I've got all my emails out of the way. I've done my research. I've done whatever I'm, working on, and then in the afternoon I can sit down. I can write for 2 or 3 hours, and do 2,000 or 3,000 words. So and that's what you've got to do. The other thing is basically not being disciplined. So you need to write regularly. You need to feel driven to write. It's not a case of sitting down and just doing it here and there, because you'll lose your thread, you'll lose where you are, you'll lose your momentum basically.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
none of that is helpful. So it's basically about being disciplined, and it's about not putting too much pressure on themselves. As I said, there's this tendency to think that they've got to set up a glorious desk in out looking over the woods and waterfalls and autumnal sunlight coming in and all of that, and that's all lovely to have, but it's unfortunately not available to most of us. So your dining room table is fine.
Absolutely. And you just said something else. I'll come back to you. So it said, but somebody else has sent a question in. Do you try to be original or to deliver to readers what they want? I think you've answered that really.
Yeah, I think if you go down that route of trying to give readers what they want, it's a really dangerous game to play. You might as well be original, and also you've got to write for yourself. Again, talking about the common traps people fall into, a lot of people think that writing is like a shortcut to getting rich. It's a get rich scheme. Money's just going to fall from the sky, and Amazon or a literary agent or otherwise is going to shower you with money. You need, if for your work to be good, for your good to have, for your work to have, integrity, you've got to be able to write it for yourself, and you've got to be able to basically write it and put it in a drawer. And if nobody ever read it and ever saw it again, you'd still have to be happy with it.
Yeah.
If you're writing to get rich, wish you the best of luck, but it doesn't happen for most of us. It took, Stephen King, who we've talked about, he wrote his first book at 41 when he was a part-time teacher, and it took him, 20 years to become an overnight success. So.
But I've been talking about success and Stephen King, and I don't know a lot about, I can appreciate, but actually, just jumping a bit, you have also not only wrote your own books, but you have publish them. Is that correct? And they're also on Audible?
Yeah, I mean, I think self-publishing is it's perfectly valid these days, as long as you're disciplined. So all my books are professionally edited, they're professionally produced. The Audible books are professionally narrated by a Chicago theatre actor who does far better voices than I ever could. So as long as you do those things right, then you're likely to you're likely not to fall too far from the tree. Self-publishing is a huge thing. Stephen King is a self-published author. Everybody knows the 50 Shades series, which started off as fan fiction from Twilight. So that was self-published. There's a lot of people who go down the self-publishing route now, and did in the past. So it's not a dirty word. It's not a way of doing it. And of course, if you do get it right, the profits are very much more in your favour as an author than, for instance, going with a literary agent or a publishing house. The thing to really remember is that you have to do all the work yourself, of course. You have to do the marketing, you have to do all of that, and it's not easy, but all the tools are out there if you want to publish a book. I helped somebody edit and produce a book not too long ago, and we went from start to finish in a matter of weeks. The design of the book, because all the tools are out there on platforms like Amazon and otherwise.
And absolutely, yeah, I know you do help other people produce books, but one thing I just want to put in here quick is that if you wanted to look up Luke, and we'll mention it again, it's at Black Beast Books. You can find him on Instagram and Facebook, and on Amazon it's under Luke Phillips, or on the web it's blackbeastbooks.co.uk. I think that's correct, isn't it, Luke?
Yeah.
Okay, so just if you wanted to have a quick look at what we're doing, but also wanted to ask you, is a question that I'm sure many people are asking, and I am, and I know once you get everything in place and you know all the answers, is it difficult to self-publish?
No, it's really easy, and to be honest, it's a double-edged sword, because it is really easy, but what then happens is that there's a lot of mediocre and even pretty bad books out there because people haven't taken the time to check things, to edit, to get professionals involved. So, and again, it comes down to if you just want to publish a book and be happy with it and have it for you, that's fine. But really, if you really want this book if you really want a book to be read, if you really want it to be appreciated, and if you really want to give it the best shot in the world, you really do need to give it the time and attention it deserves. Many authors talk about books as their babies, and they really are, because the amount of time and dedication goes into them, they should do so.
Yeah, definitely. And I know we talk about success, but I think I'm right to say, I'm not asking anything from you, but just to say that from our conversation, I don't know how many months ago now, you said that you'd really started to see the benefits of your rewards, the reward of your sort of writing of the books and putting all of that work and effort in that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, the first book, Shadow Beast, it was 3 years old when I launched it as an audio book. And it had been doing well. The Amazon, put a bit of support behind it, and I've obviously, I've got some training and background and experience in marketing, so that helps as well. But yeah, the audiobooks in particular, I mean, I wish I'd discovered audiobooks years ago, because launching that has definitely really helped. But it's more about making the books as accessible as possible to everybody. So not everybody has the time to sit down and read a book. But as you say, a lot of people, you're in the car. I absorb books in the car because I like long journeys. So I'll listen to an audiobook and absorb one or two a week sometimes. And that's how a lot of people do it, whether they're commuting or if they're working. Having a book on in the background helps you get to that same level. And as I say, I don't think it's anything any author should really shy away from. Make your books as accessible as possible. And that's why one of the things I've done and benefited from is the books are available in paperback, they're available on Kindle, and they're available as an audiobook. So
there you go, a range for everybody. Super duper. Another question for you from somebody. Do you think someone could be a writer if they don't feel emotion strongly?
That's a really interesting question, because yes and no, because there are, Truman Capote, who wrote In Cold Blood, and is perhaps more famous for Breakfast at Tiffany's. He said you should never really blame an author for the things a character says or does, because the characters have a life of their own, and to a certain extent that is true. And I've actually come across that myself, where I've been writing particularly for my character Thomas, who at times is really arrogant and annoying. Yes. And actually, it helps to be able to emotionally distance yourself from the situation, because there are things that Thomas does, for instance, that I don't agree with or that I wouldn't do, but Thomas absolutely would. And sometimes, a friend actually really annoyed me once when she said, "Oh, I can see Thomas is like your perfect version of you." And I went, "He certainly isn't."
No, he isn't.
He's definitely not.
Like Paul and Catherine dance, though, I have to say.
Yeah.
They dance together. But yeah, interesting. Absolutely. Definitely.
So, again, it depends what you're writing. So, I think if you're writing fiction, to be emotional, if you're not very emotional, if you can't see the empathy and sympathy of your characters, if you can't empathize with them in the situation you're in, you're probably going to struggle. So you need to be able to put yourselves in their shoes to a certain extent. But then again, you might, even if you're not very emotional, you might be able to do that. You might be able to read people well. A lot of writers are really good people watchers. So you'll always beware of the quiet guy in the corner of a cafe with a notebook, because if he sees something interesting, you might become a character in his next book.
Having said that, I know for a fact that you are out visiting all sorts of things. eating in fabulous restaurants, but not only that, but going out, meeting friends, but going to many, many destinations. Not that I all have animals, I have to say, or, beasts and monsters, but you do a lot of going out. I know, to amazing places, historic places, seaside, wherever, country. Do these experiences, do they inspire you with your books?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think you need to be. They help in two ways, in that they give me the rest and the respite I need to reset and things like that. We always talk about eureka moments, that when you're in the bath and you go, oh, I've just thought of that, and being out can have exactly that same, effect. I was out not too long ago and saw somebody basically catching fish and cooking them, and I was like, oh right, now that my character does that, and I've done that wrong. So it makes you go on a tangent. And the amount of times I've been exploring old ruins and places like that, and go, oh, well, this would be a good place, and oh, that could just have this, and there's all these legends, castles and dragons, and it's very difficult not to walk around them and not have something stirred in the imagination. So it definitely.
Definitely.
And also the fact that one of my characters, Thomas, certainly likes his posh food. Doesn't hurt if you have to do the
It's whiskey.
Yeah. Oh, it's whiskey. Yeah, he likes whiskey and cigars, which might be something I have in common with him, to be fair.
Okay, let's give another one. How many hours a day do you write? I think you answered that. I think you said 3 to 4 in the afternoon, didn't you?
Yeah, 2 to 3. I always aim for 2 to 3 hours, because that's really all you're capable of creatively. So I tend to get all my emails out of the way in the morning. I'll do some research. I'll certainly look at character development, things like that in the morning. And then in the afternoons, I really like to just sit down and write. Everything's else done, and then I can give myself some creative space, to do 2 or 3 hours of good work. So
lovely. Got another question. Do you want each book to stand on its own, or are you trying to build a body of work with connections between each book? You think you've sort of answered some of that, but
yeah, I mean, I've got a number of different books in progress, and story ideas. They will all be set in the same universe. Right. So like my characters that are in the first 3 books, the 2 books are out, Phantom Beast and the Daughters of the Darkness. Those are based around the same characters. Phantom Beast, will have the same characters, but there is a character that I introduce in that story who will get her own spin-off. So that's where Rogue comes in. She gets us. That's one of the reasons my books have taken so long this year, is because I'm trying to write 2 at the same time, because they're sort of connected, which I will never ever do again. So,
wow. I don't believe. Maybe there's a film coming on here, eh?
Yeah, everybody. Well, yeah. If Hollywood is listening, now's the time. Without a doubt.
It's possible. Look at Twilight. Look at all these other people. Look at J.K. Rowling. These things are possible. It's just the right moment. So maybe it's coming.
Yeah, no.
The other thing,
I've got about 20 ideas in flight, and fleshed out. So I could write a book a year for the next 20 years, and that would be my universe complete. So
yeah, absolutely. Just give you a little comment that one of the girls said. So this is one. Also interesting, captivating. Creating a book really takes you to a magical realm, more than it does with the readers. Thank you for sharing your story. Fascinating insight. Absolutely. Thank you, Warner. Thank you.
Yeah, very well.
Definitely. Somebody's asked me, how many unfinished books do you have in your drawer? And we're not talking about the ones that you're saying you're writing and publishing this year, but something that I've started off, forget that.
Yeah, too many is the honest answer. So I've got a lot of unborn children, shall we say? There's 2. There's 2 in particular. There's one called Dark Tides, which is a science fiction story, and I started that years ago, and I was promising the readers that it would be out years ago, and it's still about a third done. So.
Maybe that's for later. That's for later.
And I really want to write it as well, because it's great. And there's another one which is called A Shadow in the Mirror, which I worked on for years, but I just couldn't get it right. It's a crime thriller, and it was always about. I had it in my head, these two older, white guys in America, and then literally not too long ago, I changed the characters and I changed the gender from male to female, and it now really works. So that one might be out sooner than I think. So
wow. So do you do this full time then, Luke, now, or do you work somewhere else as well?
No, well, I've got so I basically have the freelance content creation, which is obviously non-fiction. So I help people edit and write their own books, but I also help people create content for social media, for websites, for if anything that requires copywriting, really. And then the books come out, and it's probably something like a 70-30 split, I would say, in favour of the books at the moment. So.
Of course, but obviously after this, don't forget, put all this in the comments afterwards so they know all the other things that you do as well, because it'd be interesting, because I'm sure somebody on here is thinking about writing, wants to write a book, is not sure where to start, might want a bit of guidance, or may have already written something and want some, proofreading or something like that.
Sure. So, very kind. Definitely, yeah, and very, very open to being approached on, as I say, on social media or via the website. So.
There you go, guys. You've got it there. So, another question. I've got lots of questions, Luke, and I'm sorry, but they're all here.
Right. Got to ask questions if you're going to write a book. It's don't find anything out otherwise.
Yeah. Somebody's asked, do you view writing as a kind of spiritual practice?
I think it is, because I write. It depends. Again, it would depend on the genre and things you write, but I think no matter what you're exploring, even it's fiction or non-fiction, so for instance, I take my characters to some pretty dark places. They have to navigate their way through some pretty horrific experiences and, some real soul-searching questions. And again, you have to live those experiences as the writer and understand the sort of the moral consequences and things like that. So when you're creating those scenarios and those experiences, you have to understand the human, reaction to that, because otherwise your readers aren't going to react to it, and you're not, which would pretty much be a failure. So I think it is a spiritual experience in that it always forces you to grow. So when I'm researching things, I find things out that I didn't realize before. My current book I'm researching, I've really found out a lot about the Native American cultures and how, they've really been impacted by things, and, what we did to them and things like that. So there's stuff like that, which I think always takes you on a spiritual journey, and certainly, reminds you that, there are consequences to actions and so forth. And that growth is really interesting to explore. So.
I mean, you and I have talked about morning pages, and I do
Absolutely.
meditation, and I can sort of get lost in my meditation. And if I do my morning pages, which I'm not so disciplined at the moment of doing every morning, but I do them, and I sometimes, when I'm doing those morning pages, I feel almost like sometimes like I'm doing a meditation, for even if all for 3 or 4 minutes, and I'm just sort of lost in my hand, just writing. Is from my perspective, is it a bit like a meditation when you get sort of involved, you get lost? So you're in that flow, as I call it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely times where, like I say, I'll try and write 2,000 or 3,000 words a day, but there are days when I could do that in no time, because basically something happens, or I get involved in the scene, or I'm taken to a place where basically it becomes a real connection, and you really go for it. There are also going to be days where you don't feel it at all, and you do need to perhaps think about putting the pen down. So.
For a little bit. Let me just copy all this. Yeah. And okay, let's look at something else, please. Do you read your book reviews, and how do you deal with the not so positive ones, if there are any not so positive ones?
Yeah, there are. It's one of those things you have to deal with. But quick answer is you ignore the bad, and you use the good for marketing. So that's basically all you can do. because otherwise, again, you get into that trap of trying to please all of the people all of the time.
Yeah.
I have a rating of 4.7 out of 5 on Amazon, so
Wow.
it's pretty good. But there was an American woman who, her one-word review was preposterous, and there was other people, really get into the nitty-gritty, like they really had trouble believing that that this animal would come back to life, and things like that. And I was like, if you've read Jurassic Park, this really isn't a stretch. So.
Yeah. Anything's possible, and it is fiction. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Yeah, it's
one question, which is a simple question, and I don't know. I'm intrigued by this myself, but how do you select your character names?
Oh, well, it does depend, but I mean, the easiest one for me. So Thomas and Catherine is kind of an easy one, in that when I was younger, I always had visions of not very imaginative names. Now I think about it, but basically that's what I wanted to call, if I had kids. That's what I wanted to call my kids, Thomas and Catherine. So
There you go.
so they are basically my children. But with everything else, what I tend to do is, so for instance, my most recent book is set in the States, and in particular in Wyoming. So that book, I found indigenous names, the most common surnames for Wyoming, and in particular the county that it's set in. So again, it's just research. It's finding a realistic name, and something that sounds good. But sometimes they just come to you as well. So for instance, in the second book, I have an Irish character called Jericho O'Connell. I couldn't tell you why I called him Jericho. I have no idea. But it sounded great, and everybody seems to like him as well. So so mainly because he looks like Chris Hemsworth, I think. So
wow.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the reaction.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the characters make them. So I won't forget Catherine, and I won't forget Thomas anymore, and definitely when Jericho comes along, I won't forget him either. So I think, and I think people really dive in, and you become so involved, I think, with the characters, because for me, I couldn't wait to see what was going to happen with the next person, and the army guy and the American guy that came in, to help them find the big cat and so on. So I think you do really start to use your imagination. I think I did. Mine was racing and racing with your book, definitely. And I think that's why I don't really read fiction so much or anything, because I get lost in them and it takes all my time. But no, amazing, absolutely, amazing.
That's very kind. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when I first wrote the second book, a friend of mine who's quite a staunch feminist, she actually got really angry, and she was like, "I'm really angry with these characters, but then I've realised that they're fictional." And I was like, "They are, and they are a pain. They're basically."
But that's typical of me. I might hear my friends go, "Oh, well, guess what happened to Betty on this story?" And they're involved in these. I'm going, it's just a soap opera or whatever they watch. And then I realise that's me when I'm involved in the book.
I mean, but again, that's part of the way of making characters realistic. You have to give them flaws. You have to give them. It's like that old adage. You like somebody for their qualities, but you love them for their faults. And you have to make. They have to be a pain in the ass sometimes, because it's part of who they are. So.
The research here for the books is really quite a big part. Because people will, so if you're talking about Scotland or Wyoming or wherever, and people know that, they're going to pull it apart to a certain extent.
Exactly.
The research has got to be, right. Because when you go into your book, the one I've read, that when you're going into the details about the animals and the traits, and the true stories when beasts were let go in the 70s and 60s and whatever else, there's a lot into that. So what time scale are we talking with that sort of research?
Well, it's normally part and parcel of the process, as the writing process. So I'll normally do it in the same time scale. So as the book is being written, it's being researched. Certainly in the first draft,
Yeah.
the research and the writing goes hand in hand. So as I said, I tend to do my research and those sort of things in the morning, or I'll do a big section, like say for instance with the first book where I'm talking about the Dangerous Wild Animals Act and things like that. And as you said, the real life cases of things like the Beast of Bodmin, Lucy the Cougar, and all that sort of stuff, all real things that happened. That obviously takes a little bit of time to accumulate and sort of process, and again to tell the story. But it normally happens, roughly at the same time. So, but it can take a good few weeks in advance sometimes if needs be. So.
You just mentioned a word then I'm going to pick up on. It's not a question, it's from anybody, it's from me. So you said drafts. So how many drafts do you actually do, or is that a silly question?
No, I always aim for 3 drafts. So
that's very disciplined.
So first, well, again, to quote my I hope harsh language is all right on the channel, but my Ernest Hemingway says, that the first draft of anything is shit. So so it really is a work in process, but you have to sort of chip away at the rough edges and work on. The second draft is normally pretty good, and then after the third draft is normally nitpicking. So
A question on screen for you from Diane. How open and vivid can one's imagination stretch? Does this depend on the writer's personal experience? You can answer that?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent it does, but also it's a muscle. It needs to be worked. So the more you do it, the more the further you can go. So watch a film that you wouldn't normally watch, read a book you wouldn't normally read, expand your horizons, and your experience doubles and grows. So I've never set foot in Africa, but I've written a book that is in Africa. I've never set foot in Wyoming, although I want to, but I've been there in terms of letting my imagination go there. I've done the virtual tours of the parks, and I've read the books. I've read the Hunter's Tales. I've spoken to a living relative of Colonel Patterson. So it's one of those things that you can get there by by making yourself do the work and reaching out and pushing yourself basically. So.
But you're really obviously passionate about this and obviously very disciplined, and we all probably do a bit more of your discipline, so I'll throw some this way, But definitely. Another question for him. It's a big one, I think, or to me it sounds big. What was the hardest scene to write?
It's difficult actually, because there's probably 2 that were hard to write. So in the second book, I had to write my first ever sex scene, because it's a vital part of the story, unfortunately. And that was horrendous. I mean, they say write what you know, and that definitely wasn't what I know. So, and then actually for me, in the first book, there are a couple of death scenes which were, again, you have to be disciplined, because and in my most recent book as well, I killed off a main character, and that's not an easy thing to do sometimes. So so those are the ones that come to mind. Killing off characters or making them do things you wouldn't want to reveal to the public are probably the most difficult.
That's revealing good, killing off your babies, isn't it?
It is very much so. Yeah. So yeah.
Good question for you now. What was your favorite childhood book?
Well, I mean, it's Call of the Wild by Jack London. It's it's a book written from the animal's point of view, although it's written in the third person, so it's not quite the same as mine. But Call of the Wild is all about this dog called Duke, who is the dog of a rich judge, who gets kidnapped and is made into a sled dog in the Yukon during the gold rush, and ends up running away and to live with the wolf packs. and it's just a beautiful story. It's they've recently remade the film, and it's excellent. So yeah,
Excellent.
lovely.
Want to watch out for. What was that name again?
It's called Call of the Wild, by
Okay.
Jack London, and it's again the fact that it's all set in glorious wilderness and wildlife and all of that definitely captured my imagination at a very early age. So it has a lot to answer for.
Absolutely. Oh, good. A question. Do you hide any secrets in your books only a few people will find? That's a strange question sent in, or is it not?
Yeah, so there are, all of my books have what we call Easter eggs. So there are things that you have to look for. So, for instance, there will always be a snake somewhere. Tom will always end up in a tree. And there's a couple of other things, but there's a couple of things that my dedicated readers have known to have become used to, shall we say? So
right, okay. And I think this is the final question that's come in so far. If you had to do something differently as a child or a teenager to become a better writer, what would you do? So I guess somebody's asking you, what would you advise them to?
It's a tricky one because I have two lines of thought. So I do kind of wish I'd listened to my teachers who were telling me go and become a writer. So I would love to have a degree in creative writing rather than a degree in zoology. But at the same time, I wouldn't have the experience I have or the knowledge I have that everyone says is the core of the books now. And obviously, it's, as you said, it's something I'm really passionate about anyway. I really love my wildlife. I love my animals. So it was always something I was going to kind of do. So I would love to perhaps have gone to university and studied creative writing instead. But at the same time, I have the foundation for everything I do now. So maybe not so much. So.
Two ways to skin a cat, or many ways to skin a cat. You can go one way or the other way, and you've chose this way, which I'm sure is, full of abundance in every kind of area for sure, far more than a lot of people actually. Definitely. I mean, Luke's absolutely thrilling, absolutely amazing. A lot of questions coming for you, a lot of people coming in here interesting. So, we've talked about, the questions that many people ask, the beginning of the book, where you started, your favorite book. Obviously, you're publishing the book. The book is now available on audio, Kindle, and obviously on paperback through Amazon at Black Beast Books. What else would you like to add? What else would you like to tell us before we draw our evening to a close? Anything else you'd like to share or say to the audience?
Well, I would say, and obviously we had a few comments about people thinking, feeling inspired and wanting to do it. And obviously, we've been through some, 2020. It's been, a pretty dark time for a lot of people, and a lot of people are struggling. And a lot of people are thinking about writing at the moment. And again, I would just have two messages. One, if it's something you really want to do, then basically start. Have a go. Get yourself a journal. Get yourself to, well, not during lockdown, but to a coffee shop, or give yourself a 15-minute break and have a coffee and see what comes on the page. It might be nonsense, but you've written something. It might be gold, so get started. But at the same time, don't put pressure on yourself at the moment to do these things. Lockdown isn't a productivity contest. It's just about getting through it. So if writing is something that's going to help you through that, I would say do it. If it's going to put massive pressure on yourself and give you anxiety, then I would say avoid it like the plague. So
You say something there which caught me. You say a coffee shop. Now, when you watch movies or you see people or you see students in particular, so often they go to coffee shops. I'm sure that's because of the Wi-Fi. But taking those aside, do you feel that a lot of people find solitude or inspiration in actually going and sitting in a coffee shop alone and just getting the
Oh
joy.
yeah, I mean, it's famous that J.K. Rowling, wrote her, the first, almost all of the first Harry Potter book in a coffee shop in Edinburgh. So,
Wow.
and as I said, a lot of authors, we are skilled people watchers. It's one of our favourite hobbies, and a lot of us very few people can write in silence. So a lot of people like a bit of background noise, whether it's a podcast or music. For most people, a productive background noise is the ambience of people moving and talking in the background. So again, coffee shops can provide that for you. So
yeah. Well, I would have never thought that. I would have thought silence would have been the best, but obviously not. It makes sense, and that's why obviously a lot of people are.
No, again, I think that's one of the things. When we're talking about the things that trip up first-time writers or aspiring writers, is they put this pressure on themselves to sit in silence and just come up with the art, and that's not how you do it. You need to feel comfortable. You need to feel, as you say, we've talked about the morning pages and things like that. You need to basically give your artist a little bit of a cuddle and bring it out a bit more and make it feel safe. You can't do that in complete silence and stuff.
Definitely not. Well, Luke, Diane's just going to thank you, Luke. I definitely find myself excited and interested in your experience, very real and very factual. And, Diane, if you go and get that book, let me tell you, Beastly for sure, Shadow Beast for sure, you will absolutely love it. So go and download it tonight on from Amazon.
I mean, if you get it on Kindle, it's the price of a coffee. So it's only, I think it's $3.99. I think so.
Yeah. I'm asking everybody to kind of big up Luke, put some comments up there, say hello. Got something else coming on here. Luke, thank you so much for your story. I really hope that you will get the success you wish for and many more fans to come. Susan, thank you for every amazing opportunity you bring to us with different subjects, the ideas of inspiration, and we do not even imagine you are. Thank you. Lots of love.
Yeah,
thank you very much, Warner. Sorry, Luke.
No, I was saying thank you to everybody. Those are really lovely comments.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you to everybody for all of your comments. Luke, thank you for coming on here, sharing with. I personally wish you much, much, much success with everything. I'm sure that I can feel a film coming on here. Don't forget me.
Yeah, who knows?
But hopefully, obviously, we'll get you on another time later on, see how you're going, how things are going. But feel free to kind of share your information and stuff on my Minding the Soul page, without a shadow of a doubt, and obviously details on there. But it's been an inspiration. I love the book. So anybody watching, the details are at the bottom of it. I've just put them on there at Black Beast Books, and that's Luke Phillips, the author. So thank you, Luke. I wish you all the very best, and I will look forward to speaking to you soon.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Susan. Thanks, everybody.
Right, everybody, there you have it. Black Beast Books by author Luke Phillips. Lots of books, including Shadow Beast. 2 more books to come out before the end of the year. The information you'll find below here. Anything you want to know, you can contact Luke directly. And I just say thank you for coming on here tonight. #replay if you have not, if you're coming on and watching on a replay later. And to remind you that I love you and I appreciate you all coming on here. You're amazing for your support. Spread the word. Remember, it's lockdown. Keep yourself safe. Remember the prompters, coping with lockdown, that I said at the beginning, which I will also get on my site tomorrow. Tomorrow, bright and early, people, 6:30 meditation to start your day off right. And the word will be coming thought-provoking, what can I say, sentences, words for you to reflect upon. And mindfulness meditation starting on the 18th of this month, 7:30 till 9. It is a new group. If you are interested in finding out a little bit more about meditation, then this is for you. It will be a regular group, and I'm trying to get quite a few people on there, so drop me a message inbox. So enough from me. I thank you for your time, which we know is precious. I love you lots, and I look forward to seeing you again on Talk Tuesday or in between on other platforms. Thank you very much. Goodbye.